This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express Monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hi, friends. Welcome to this week's pod. This is a show for the week of September 2nd, 2024. And this is what's going on in our Disney World. I'd just like to mention, before we get started, if you could do the like and comment on this video, we really appreciate it. We're slowly growing as we do every single week. It's all due to you doing the likes and the comments. It's very good. And a reminder about all our social media on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and the YouTube channel, all at the DBC Pod. Now, Phil, we're week 2 of your trip report, which Correct. We're just going to get into in a minute, and I'm eager for that. But before we start, I'd just like to mention something at the top of the show. Everybody might remember I became a small independent travel agent sometime last year, and this week I officially set up my own thing called Magic Travel on Main. I'm not going to be promoting it too heavily on this show, but I want to make a mention. And this is mostly done to work with close friends and family, that sort of thing. But I wanted to mention in case anybody wants to book their vacation with me and get all the fun and happy support that you hear and watch on this show. I'll be more than happy to do that. And you can find all of my information on magictravelonmain.com. But I also want to mention that website because it's also a landing page for this podcast and Discord. So if you need a home base for that on the internet, like you can't find the links for anything, the main feed for the podcast is on there. Link at the top, and the Discord server information is all up there as well. So if you need something to kind of point friends to, if you want to share and it's not on YouTube or you don't know how to share on your podcast software, that's a good place to go. And I think, Phil, we might actually start writing again on the blog. It's not enabled, so don't look for that. But whenever the feeling hits us, we want to write an article rather than kind of dumping it on a forum or in Discord. Anything long format we'll put there too. But we'll talk about that more in the future. But again, that website is magictravelonmain.com. And if you want to check it out, I take criticism very well, so send it our way. Okay, that being said,
a spelling error that I notified Jason about. So
I'm the worst speller in the world, by the way, and the fact that there was only one so far just makes me feel very good about myself. So because I will even miss all of the spell checks, and I always forget something. Okay, so last week, Phil, we left off day 3. You did your Epcot day. And then basically you were kind of lamenting not having the multi-pass because lines are spread out a little bit. But we finished the day. But you forgot to mention something. Yeah. So let's start there.
So I forgot to mention, kind of, I guess, in the interest of wrapping up and all that sort of stuff and focusing on talking about extra hours and stuff like that. But one thing that fun and funny thing that happened to us is when we were doing our boarding group for Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, we got into the first pre-show room, and all of a sudden friends of ours strolled in at the same time as us, and we had no idea they were down at Disney. It was one of the kids that was in my son's Boy Scout troop and his dad, and it was just really funny to run into people that you had no idea were there, but you were there, and we kind of hung out for a little bit and took some photos after. And my kids got a kick out of it because usually I'm not really friendly, so I don't have a lot of friends or know people, but my wife knows everyone, so she always meets people. Here. She always runs into people at Disney that she knows. So my kids thought it was funny that this time she wasn't even here, and we still ran into somebody that we know.
That happened to us on our 2015 trip. Very close friend of the family of my mother's. We were at Animal Kingdom. We were out right in front of Tree of Life, kind of heading towards Dinorama, and we just went, "Whoa, Mike, what are you doing here?" And we see them multiple times per week in a social setting quite a bit, and no one mentioned anybody was going to Disney World. So I thought that was kind of funny. It's of all the places and of all the places you could be, you could have 100 friends at going to Epcot, you might not even run into them the same night, but walking in the same room, that's
my kids were kind of talking. It was funny that if it was oh well, if we didn't stop here for whatever reason, like we'd gotten on one line and then got out, and then like basically if we were off timing wise by like 5 minutes or whatever,
Yeah, I was gonna say
we
5
wouldn't have
minutes is
run
all it
into
takes.
So the kids kind of got a kick out of that. Like every little timing thing had to work out perfectly and stuff like that. So I don't know. It was fun. But anyway,
Okay.
moving on to day 4, which was now Tuesday. This was our no parks day. It was going to be our break day, resort time day, that sort of thing. But we did mix in going to Disney Springs, key thing, and it moved up in the priority list for us because I really wanted to see the drone show, Disney Dreams That Soar. So that became sort of the anchor for the day, but we didn't have any real set plans for the day prior to that.
Before you start, because you've had like a mixed history of how you do your Disney World vacations over the, like at least post pandemic, where you stay offsite, you get a day or two here. I know back in, it's funny, the family was just watching our 2022 home movies. It was like we just watched the one where we went to Magic Kingdom, where we met in person for the first time, randomly in line for Peter Pan. Speaking of meeting random people, like in random places. You don't typically either have time to take, a break for a day or whatever. So what made you put it like on this certain day? What made you decide to have an off day? Like, how did it all come?
I think it's all part of our evolution in touring style of just not wanting to go, needing more breaks. My son really enjoying our down and back that was take it easier and that sort of thing. And so I really knew I wanted to mix in a day, and especially because we knew we were going to have some later nights with the deluxe extra hours and stuff like that. It was kind of pretty early on in the planning. We kind of decided, once we decided to get those 4-day tickets, the special with the 1 park per day, we're like, okay, well, let's mix in an off day in the middle of it. And that's kind of how we got to kind of the days, and we were able to find flights that worked.
If this was the old you, would you have gotten a single day ticket, or would you have gotten a 5-day ticket if this was, go, Phil, and not like take it easy, Phil?
I don't know.
Or would it have just been a shorter vacation?
I think, honestly, that's what probably would have happened is more so, not that we would have done an extra day in the park. We would have just arrived a day later and not had an off day. And if we wanted to see the drone show, that would have been like after our Animal Kingdom day.
Gotcha. You would have squeezed it in somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's more of what it would have been if we were going to go. I guess the new me is willing to pay for another night at the hotel, I guess.
Okay, there we go.
To have an off day in the middle of it. So that's what we did. We slept in. We didn't really do anything in the morning. It was just kind of kids vegging out on the bed and the couch and on the patio a little bit, the balcony a bit, and having some screen time and stuff like that.
Are you still waking up early, but just kind of you're just doing nothing, or do you actually sleep in to 9 o'clock?
I think I woke up a little on the early side just because I wake up kind of early almost every day. And I think I tried to lie there for a little bit so I didn't bother them. But at, I don't know, 8-ish or something like that, I got up to make coffee and stuff like that. But they kind of slept until 9:30, 9:45.
Oh, very nice.
And
okay.
then they were just kind of lounging. Ultimately, we left the room around 11:40. We had an ADR at lunch at Sanaa booked, which was obviously convenient when staying at Kidani. That was sort of one of my priorities for the trip. For some reason, instead of calling them must-dos for this trip, it turned out to be like, what are your priorities? And this was one that I told the kids was eating here was one of my priorities.
And for everybody listening, you are staying at Animal Kingdom Lodge, in case you forgot about that from last week.
At Kidani Village. So literally, it was just like going downstairs and we were there.
Well, let me ask you another question. So you're not leaving the room to basically lunchtime.
Yep.
Was there any part of you, because I know you, was there any part of you like, we're wasting so much money, we're wasting so much time, or were you able to kind of take it easy and just kind of sit back and relax?
I kind of took it easy and did. I was kind of going to play it by ear and see how the kids were going to do. I was like, because they do a lot of activities at Animal Kingdom Lodge. So part of me was like, well, if the kids want to go, we could do some of like looking at the, talking to the cast members and things like that. But they were kind of good with just vegging. And I kind of, after the late night, was like, you know what, they let them do that. That's part of their vacation. They can do what they want.
Sure.
So it worked out. A great lunch at Sanaa. We, of course, got the bread service, which you're, I think, required to do. Although someone on Discord posted that chart that showed like inflation things at Disney. And I guess the bread service has one of the highest.
The highest inflation rates on property.
Yeah, it was up like 200% in the last like 5 years or something like that.
What happens when things get popular.
Exactly. But we enjoyed that. The kids even tried some of the spicy ones. which I think was fun. They both ordered off the kids menu. They let them do that. One got the butter chicken, one got the fish, and I just did there was like this lamb appetizer with couscous. So it was almost like a mini entree, but it's just on the appetizer menu, so it was rather inexpensive.
I forget. It's when you do the bread service, is it one size fits all, or do they scale it based on your party?
It's just one size. So yeah,
Okay.
so it's the 5 things of bread and the 11.
That's a lot for the 3 of you.
It is, yeah. So we got through pretty much all the bread. Obviously, some of the dips we went through more than others, but kind of I knew that was going to be a big appetizer. So that's another reason I didn't get like a full size entree. And then the kids' meals came with these really cool desserts that were like Pumbaa's bugs or something like that, but it was all like kind of pudding with graham crackers and like had like little figures and gummy worms and stuff like that.
It's like dirt or whatever.
It was like the vanilla version of dirt, kind of.
Okay.
Like, so it looked more like, I guess, like desert or the savannah or something like that instead of dirt. And I got one of the new desserts there, the giraffe one, which was one of the prettier desserts we've ever had. It had peanut butter and banana flavors to it. So you definitely have to like those flavors. But if you do, I highly recommend it. If you don't, then definitely don't get it because it was strong of those flavors. We weren't at a table near a window, which was a little bit of a buzzkill, but we could see out and there weren't a ton of animals activity there. And we have the balcony that overlooks the animals anyway. So I figure it wasn't a huge
not a big deal. So let me ask you this. This was, I'm trying to remember, you've done... Is this your first like real sit down meal of your trip at this point?
Yeah, this was. Well, no, we actually at Animal Kingdom we'd done that last minute reservation at Yak and Yeti, but this is the first.
Oh, that's true.
This is the first ADR we made ahead of time that we actually kept.
So, in your opinion, going from like a relaxed day, just going into a nice lunch, is that almost worth it to maybe future plan some of your next vacations where like. Maybe we'll do only a half a day of the park. Let's say we're not doing ticket deals. It's like you're getting a 7-day ticket or whatever. Maybe one of your days is you sleep in, go to an ADR somewhere where it's brunch, lunch, or maybe a late afternoon type of thing, and then go into the parks. Is that kind of setting you up in your head on how you might do things in the future?
It could be if that's kind of what. And to be honest, that was my initial thinking of how our Epcot day might have gone. That we slept in more and only arrived at the park at say noon or something like that, and that's why we were going to have that mid-afternoon meal. But yeah, I know some people do that. Kind of do like maybe like a brunch or a lunch or something at one of the Magic Kingdom resorts before going into the Magic Kingdom for the day or something like that, because Magic Kingdom doesn't always have the best food for everyone. So
sure, okay. So I'm just curious, like if that might like. Again, I don't think we've ever had the conversation where you had a nice ADR that wasn't spliced in the middle of the day or at the end of a long day.
Yeah.
And the only relaxed meal I can think of you ever having was probably you going to the restaurant in Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, my wife and I, Judy, we did Tiffin's as like a lunch date.
I can never remember I keep wanting to call it Nomad's Lounge, but it's Tiffin's. Sorry. Yeah. All right, go ahead. So after lunch, or was there anything else you wanted to mention about?
No, pretty much the lunch. It was just a good solid meal. Sanaa is always a good too, and I think it's another example of us kind of ordering smartly, for lack of a better word. I think we did a lot of that this trip to kind of keep the total bill down, because if you're not careful, dining bills can get expensive at Disney. So by kind of like, we're getting the big appetizer, I'll just do another appetizer as my entree, that sort of thing. I think it kind of helps out. We then went swimming for a few hours. One negative during this was, I think it was during this time, my daughter lost an earring somewhere in the pool.
Oh, it's just like my daughter losing her earring from like 2 years ago.
Yeah. So we looked for a little bit, but I was like, it was just this little tiny thing. I was like, I don't think we're ever going to find it. So we're like, we're going to Disney Springs. We'll just find new earrings for you there. Like, not a big deal.
Fair.
Left left around 4 p.m. for Disney Springs. And excuse me. So we started looking at some jewelry shops or in the World of Disney. But we were kind of struggling to find earrings for her. What we had for our plans, though, was we were doing our double dinner at Disney Springs, where my daughter Emma, one of her priorities was eating at Enzo's. That's like her favorite place, like Enzo's Hideaway. And it used to be one of my son's favorites. So I was like, okay, well, we'll go there, have like appetizers or small things. But then we were going to do our second dinner at Summer House on the Lake, because we got the reserved seating for watching the drone show. I'll be honest, it turned out to be a bit of a mistake to do this because in the end, apparently my son doesn't like it that much anymore. And then my daughter, it was a priority for her because she likes the mozzarella sticks you get as an appetizer on the kids menu.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So I'm like, we're doing this whole separate like ADR just so you could get a couple mozzarella sticks. So looking back on it, if I had known a little bit better, I probably would have pushed back and just say, or like, let's try to find mozzarella sticks somewhere else, or I don't know. But it is what it is. It was nice to get in the AC. I had a nice drink there while we were sitting there. I had like a salad, and the kids split up.
Do you go right to Enzo's? Like when you get there, like you get
we got there. We had about a half hour or so. So we went over to like the World of Disney to look for earrings and things like that, and that sort of thing. And then we went to Enzo's. Then after Enzo's, we had an hour or so where we tried to do some more shopping and kind of look at things. My son wanted to look at the Lego store, so we did that for a while. Ultimately did find kind of a pair of earrings she settled on. Weren't her favorite, but at least it was something. I have to say, I know nothing about jewelry, so when I look at the map for Disney Springs, it's like, oh, here's the jewelry stores. I'm like, okay, I have no idea like which are like,
is this like a serious one?
Right. So I was like, whatever, this one said it had like Hawaiian style. I'm like, oh, okay, let's go check that out. We go in there and we're like looking at things. Like, oh, we have these small rose gold, like rose ones. And I was like, oh, those are nice. I like them. I'm like, yes, these are $289. I'm like, okay, well, thank you very much. We'll think about it. Like get out of there as quick as we can. So yeah, that was the only kind of thing. It was like, they had like 4 or 5 stores listed, but I had no idea which would be kind of good for us.
Well, let me ask you a couple questions. So like, you know, as you are coughing up a storm there with a dry throat, You don't typically go to Disney Springs often, if I remember correctly. You've gone for like your holiday trip just to kind of check out some of the treats, but it's not like, so
it's not a must do for us each trip.
Right.
If we're staying off property, we usually wind up there or whatever. But if we're on property, it's kind of usually a little more parks focused.
So let me ask you this. So how was it in August getting there at 4:00 when nighttime is not for another 5 hours or so, 4.5, 5 hours?
Yeah. It was still pretty darn hot. And
well,
actually, I think the air conditioning at the Lego store wasn't working properly either.
Uh-oh.
So they had like temporary machines, and it was kind of a disaster. The other thing I noticed, and I don't know if this is just because I'm from New York or whatever, I feel like everyone there walks super slow.
It's the heat, though.
I guess. Meanwhile, my thing is like, don't you want to just get where you're going to get into the air conditioning as quick as possible?
Well, I mean, this is why I'm asking, right? Because I saw that note.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm from North Jersey, so it's just like New York. You go to go.
Yeah.
You're not strolling. But Disney Springs, I like Disney Springs, but only in the evening or in the cooler weather because it's nice to stroll around, get a beverage, watch some live music, hop in and out of the store, just kind of be laissez-faire about everything. But let's see, back in I guess the last time I was there was 2019, in the summer, I should say. And it was awful hot. Like it was just not pleasant. It was too bright. It was just like, I mean, I had younger kids, so maybe that had something to do with it. But like the point for Disney Springs is to kind of just stroll around, right? Yeah. Not walk fast, and like other than if you're just going in for dinner or not. So I mean, I'm just really curious what the vibe is that you felt the vibe was at that time of year. And,
yeah. So maybe it was just like because I was hot and I just wanted to get where we were trying to go, and I'm trying to navigate finding jewelry stores and like do what the kids want. But it didn't feel super relaxing. And like, you know, there were at one of the stages, there were some bands playing, but it's like, you don't really want to stop when it's so hot out. We didn't also have like hours and hours and hours. There was a couple things we wanted to hit up. So we walked around a few different places and checked out some different things. But
when you, after Enzo's though, like how much time between getting out of Enzo's and going to a summer house? How much time?
We had probably about an hour and a half.
That's not a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were walking around. You know, obviously went to World of Disney, went to the toy shop, went to a couple others, went to the Lego store, and went to a few other things.
Standard stuff.
Kind of the standard stuff, yeah. And we also, obviously, because we were having 2 dinners, we weren't really stopping at any of the food locations or anything like that, which normally we might have gone into, you know, the chocolate place or the ice cream place or something like that, but we didn't do any of that.
Okay, so the summer house, they have this new offer where you pay some extra bucks for a
Yeah.
good viewing area. Is that basically why you were going to summer house for that offer?
So that was one of the reasons we wanted to go there, was because I really wanted to see the drone show, and when we were seeing reports of how much the crowds were building for it, and just kind of how it wasn't necessarily set up like a stadium, kind of, I knew my kids didn't do well with the crowds. I was like, okay, they have this option where we can pay, it's $25 a person to sort of hold your spot. And you have a table out on the back balcony that's elevated a little bit. And you can just hang out for as long as you want. There's no like requirements for how much food or drink or anything you want to get.
Okay.
And so that just seemed to make the most sense for us. And also I've heard good things about Summer House on the and so I did want to check it out at some point.
I mean, you're going to make me have to edit this whole thing with all the coughing and everything. I hope you're all right there, buddy.
Well, the funny thing is I thought last week was going to be worse because I'm still kind of getting over this cold, but I was hoping by now I'd be okay. But I guess not. But yeah, so Summer House on the Lake, we got there. Table wasn't quite ready on time, but we waited in the inside of the AC and checked out the cookie bar. They have a whole cookie bar, which we got some at the end. And I guess, spoiler alert, I think I like them better than Gideon's cookies.
Oh, there you go. Hot take.
And much easier to purchase. You don't have to get in line for like 2 hours or whatever to get them. So we got a table outside, a really nice table with a view of the lagoon.
What time are you sitting down?
So our ADR was 7:30. I think we sat down at about 7:45, and the show starts at 9.
The sun is just starting to go down at that point, right?
Yeah. So I would say it's still, no, that is one thing to keep in mind. It's obviously outside, so it's not air conditioned, but it is covered, and they have ceiling fans. And like, yeah, as you're sitting there, the sun starts to go down. So it's not as nice as being in the AC, but it was a lot better than being out in direct sun.
I don't know how much your tips are actually going to be proved worthwhile if the show never comes back to Disney
I know.
Springs, right?
We're recording this where I think yesterday was the last night of the show. So this is great information for people that can't go to see the show anymore. But anyway, so it worked out really well for us. Like you said, we, timing wise, I would say a little bit before 8. So more than an hour before the start of the show, people started lining up.
Oh, wow.
I'd say by about 8:15, the railing was all full. By about 8:30, it was 3 people deep, and they had people out there with like megaphones basically saying you have to stand up, you can't sit, you got to go over and leave this pathway clear for walking, and you're either standing or you're moving. It's a whole thing. It was like, just made me that much more glad that I wasn't down there with my kids doing that.
Yeah.
I know they would have been stressed out and not happy.
I mean, when I first saw this deal at $25 a head just to sit down, I'm like, that is ridiculous. That's a lot of money. Like, 'cause it would be like $125 before I got anything. But hearing you talk about the crowds, and this is late into this promotion, right? So this is not like it's the first opening week or anything, opening month. And I would like, you know what? That $125 sounds pretty money well spent.
Yeah.
At least would be for my family of 5, I should say.
And obviously this was another thing that, again, since it was only the 3 of us, was a little bit easier to do. So
it's about 30% less than what a dessert party would cost for a single person.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
for us, it was totally worth it. It's not something, necessarily we would do every time or whatever like that, but for a show we hadn't seen before, we wanted to see. I knew my kids wouldn't do well with the crowds. It really worked out well for us. And we had like a picture perfect view right on it. They actually even had some steps. So like my son was sitting on the steps, just watching it. And yeah, I tried to get a little bit of video just to, and stuff like that, but mostly just watched it. And we all really enjoyed the show. My son said it's the best show Disney's ever done.
Wow.
He speaks in hyperbole sometimes too.
Of course. Yes. All young men do.
I thought it had everything kind of like what I want out of the flow of a show. Like it had, lots of, characters that you know and love, but a good variety of characters. It had an original song that I thought was really good. It is a little short. It's only about 10 minutes. Obviously it doesn't have pyro or anything like that. It's just the drones and the music. But I thought for what it was really good. And hopefully they learned from it and kind of took from it what works well, what doesn't, and maybe used this drone technology somewhere else.
So, I mean, A++ from you and everybody else. I mean, the fact that it was getting this packed throughout its duration kind of goes to show that I think Disney has a winner, at least with the technology and what they were going to do. We'll talk about this in the future, but I'd be very surprised if this is the last time we see drones on Disney
Yeah.
property. I almost get. There has to be some conversations by all the business owners of downtown, or excuse me, of Disney Springs. I almost said downtown Disney. At Disney Springs, go to Disney's like, you need to bring this back every single summer because it's puts butts in the seats and everything else like that. So I imagine that Disney's going to have something like this again. Hopefully next summer when I'm there.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice even for the summer. But I was even thinking for into the fall, because with the Magic Kingdom closing early so often, this would be like an alternative for people to do that aren't going to the Halloween party. Just
I mean, you
can
almost justify leaving Magic Kingdom at 4 or 5 o'clock before a party if you don't have party tickets that day, and then going to Disney Springs for dinner and watching this. If that was more of like a permanent offering.
So we'll see. But overall, we really enjoyed it, and hopefully everyone who wanted to got to see it. And if you didn't see it, hopefully it comes back. Ultimately, we got into our room about 10:30, so not too bad considering you were seeing a 9 p.m. show at Disney Springs. And overall, having this break day, I think really helped, and especially having just that morning where the kids really just chilled and didn't do anything else, I think really helped set us up for success the next couple days, because they were definitely longer days, especially the next one coming up.
So I'm going to ask you this question now, and then I'm also going to ask it again once we're done with your stay at Disney World. So you've basically broken up your trip into 2 halves, 2 park days, and then 2 park days with 1 day off in the middle. Does a day off, especially one where it was like a nice lazy morning without any kind of running around and you weren't on a clock except for maybe your ADRs in the evening, you didn't have to do anything other than find replacement earrings.
Yeah.
How did that allow you to kind of, talk about your last 2 days at the parks, absorb them, and kind of like give yourself some mental space in order to add like new memories in the next 2 days?
Yeah, it definitely broke things up. And like you said, we could talk about, well, what did we experience the last few days? What were some highlights? What did what are you going to remember afterwards and stuff like that? And then, what are you looking forward to on the next few days, and kind of reminding them, okay, we have these, because the next 2 days we did have the Lightning Lane multi-pass. So it's like, so we have these things set up, and we'll hopefully get on, we hadn't been on Tiana's yet, hopefully tomorrow's the day we get on the new ride and things like that. So yeah, it kind of like helped kind of reset everyone and just sort of like, okay, well, what, think about your memories from the first part of the trip, and then what are you looking forward to going forward?
Because I just remember from our last trip where we did Animal Kingdom Lodge, and then we left early, went back to the resort, and just had like a couple beers, and the kids swam in the pool for like a couple hours, right? That when you have time to just like veg out, to me, it's like, it's almost like for you, it'd be, if I were in your shoes and thinking back, I would almost think like it's almost 2 separate Disney World trips, right? You got the first sprint, a break, and then the second sprint. I like the way mentally how that breaks things up. I was just wondering if you felt the same way.
Yeah, I think it did. And I think that works well for us. I know other people, and probably if you're staying for a longer time and you have a 10-day ticket or something like that, you can kind of start doing half days and stuff like that. But when you only have, 4 park days or whatever, it's kind of hard to say like, we're only going to use half the day.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like that. So
yeah, I mean,
day off, I think helped a lot.
In 2 weeks, we have special guests coming on next week, but in 2 weeks, we'll start talking about some preliminary thoughts about my trip. I just booked 9 nights, 10 days, and I have no idea what I'm doing with myself for all that time. So I think we have an 8-day hopper that we're working with. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so day 5, Magic Kingdom.
Yeah,
so
Magic Kingdom. So like I said, this is our first time that we're using Lightning Lane multi-pass. We had booked, as a reminder, we had Pirates, Tiana's, and Haunted Mansion booked pretty much back to back to back, starting at 9:35 was our first one. It was a 9 o'clock park opening day, 8:30 for early entry. Obviously, the day started with waking up and trying to get a boarding group for Tiana's, which fortunately had some help from my wife and stuff like that. And we were able to get boarding group 3. So we were pretty well set up for that, because we know we didn't want to get too late a one, because then you have that issue if you don't get to ride and the 1 o'clock comes, can you get the Tron one and stuff like that? So we knew, we were like, okay, well, as long as the ride opens through the day, we'll get on early and take care of that. So we didn't get up super early. Again, kind of let the kids play it by ear and see when we're ready to roll. But I was like, I know I wanted to get there close to 9:30 at least to check in for my Pirates one, so that we could then start booking our next Lightning Lane and stuff like that. So that's kind of like the strategy I had in my head, was like, I'm not going to go crazy pushing to be there for early entry or anything like that, but I do want to be able to book my next Lightning Lane as early as I can.
Did you purposely estimate like around a 9:30 time for that, or is that the earliest you could get?
So when I did the pre-booking, that's when it came up for, and I figured, I did a little bit of time trying to modify things. Nothing seemed to be available. I figured day of, if we were up early and going, then I'd see if I could modify something earlier. But when that wasn't happening, I was like, you know what, we have it. Let's not mess with it, and we'll
Perfect.
we'll go.
Okay.
So ultimately, we actually got to the park right around 9:30. And I think we checked in or scanned in for the Pirates boarding group at 9:45. The next, the focus was definitely on the tier ones. And knowing that Big Thunder Mountain might be closing for a while, that was a priority for us. Excuse me. So we booked that as our next one. I did want to add, I'm not going to go through every single thing we did in every second. I have a post on the WDW Magic forums, and maybe we'll make a blog post out of this.
There you go.
Where I did it for here and for our Hollywood Studios Day. So if you really want to see every time I scan, I kept track of, I scanned in at this time and booked the next lightning lane for this one at this time and blah, blah, blah. You can go through it, but kind of just to give you some of our strategy, that's what we were thinking was, let's scan in for Pirates, get our next tier one, and kind of go from there.
I think by the end of this day, you should go over the summary that you posted on WDW.
Yep. So after that, it had called for our boarding group for Tiana's. So we went into that scan for that line for the kind of the standby for the boarding groups. There was really no line. We waited from when we got to there to when we were in a boat was 5 minutes. So
That's crazy.
So we didn't really get to take in much of the queue or anything like that. And I'll do my review of Tiana's in a minute, because after we rode that, we still had a little bit of time before our lightning lane time was up. So we went and tried the beignets that they are selling at the stand nearby, which they were tasty, but they weren't really fluffy like beignets usually are for me. So they were good. They just weren't good beignets. They were a good snack though. We wound up getting more later. The kids liked them, so I guess that's a good sign.
Sure.
After that, it was time to scan in for our lightning lane for Tiana's, and that time the line was a little bit longer. We had to wait 8 minutes. So between the two rides, we had a total of, I think it was 13 minutes of wait time. So quick review of Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Overall, we really enjoyed it. It's a really well done attraction. It just looks beautiful. All the music fits really well. It definitely has a different vibe than Splash Mountain. It's definitely set up for, you're going on this kind of adventure to find the band in the bayou. And then all of a sudden you're kind of at this drop, climb thing, because they're going to get you to the party fast and stuff like that. Maybe that could have been done a little bit better, some of the story beats. But overall, we really enjoyed it. For the most part, all the animatronics were working for us. And I have to say, the ones when it's all working and the timing is working right, that kind of your boat's getting close, the whole figure kind of turns to you and looks at you and starts talking to you. It's a really cool effect. Now, obviously, I think that's leading to some of the downtime because it's more complicated and stuff like that. But when it works, it's I think really effective. So hopefully they can figure things out. It's still having a lot of downtime issues and stuff like that, which I'm understanding might be why it's pushing off. We haven't heard anything yet about when Big Thunder is going to close. But if you get it, I think everyone should give it a try and give it all, overall, my daughter loved it. She said it was better than Splash Mountain. My son,
why it was better than Splash Mountain?
She just enjoyed it more. I think she just said it was better. I think she just enjoys Tiana more and princesses and the songs and the music. My son said he enjoyed Splash Mountain more. I think just kind of the adventure story element of it he liked better. But he did say the animatronics for this were so much better. So he was able to acknowledge that. Overall, I think it's an imperfect ride. There's definitely spots where they could add some, even with small motion animatronic critters and stuff like that, that I think would give you more to look at in certain scenes.
Sure.
Some of the scenes seem a little empty, and there's just the lightning bug effect and stuff like that. So there's definitely areas they could improve it, and the story isn't perfect, but overall I think it's a really well done attraction. And we didn't get to ride it at night, but we saw the area at night, and it's quite beautiful at night. So after that we got more beignets, and we also tried the hot honey chicken there, and we ate it inside at the kind of the seating area in Pecos Bill. again, I'm not going to go through all the time, but after this, we wanted to make sure we had time to go on Tom Sawyer Island. So we did do that. We talked about this before, announcements at D23 that impacted things. Knowing that the river was going away, my kids really enjoy Tom Sawyer Island, so we wanted to make sure we got on there. So we spent almost an hour on the island, kind of going around and having fun. They played in the fort for a lot. My son had to go up into every single one. Actually, I don't know if I just didn't notice in port, but in the tops of the towers of the fort, they have like rifles.
Yep.
And that when you pull them, it makes like a real kind of rifle shot sound effect or whatever like that. I guess I didn't realize that. So he was really enjoying going around. I got to try every single one and see which one's the best. So that was fun. The only thing is, of course, we were getting close to 1 p.m. by the time we were heading back. So on the raft, I was trying to get my 1 p.m. boarding group for Tron. I think my wife helped out again, but we were able to get one for that. And ultimately, we wound up leaving the park for our midday break around 3 p.m. We actually only probably hung out in the room. We didn't go swimming this day. We just hung out in the room for about an hour to have a break and get some air conditioning and just rest and stuff like that. Our boarding group for Tron did get called while we were on break, so we kind of headed back at about 4:45 to spend time, to do Tron and spend time in the evening there and stuff like that. Before you go ahead.
Yeah, before you go forward, so this was like a really short break. It looked like you were back for like an hour.
Yeah,
at the most. Is that worth it to do all the trouble of getting in and out of the parks just for an hour, or would you want to do it longer?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I think we would have been there a little longer. I think just by the time we got off Tom Sawyer Island and did what we were finishing up doing, and the kids wanted to get like a snack before we went back. I tried the new Dole Whip thing they had for Halloween. That was really, it just took a little longer to get out than I think I thought it would.
Yep.
It still was good to have that break because as I get to it, we were there really late. So breaking up the day, even for that hour, I think was good. But obviously, I think I wish it was a little bit longer. But
yep. So you spent how long on Tom Sawyer's Island?
Close from like when we got on the raft to when we got off was at least an hour.
That's actually a pretty good amount of time.
Yeah.
Now, the old Phil would have been like, "What are we doing here? There's lines to go on." But I guess saying goodbye to Tom Sawyer Island. I'm curious to see when that actually gets closed down. I wonder if I'll be able to get a chance to go on it if it's still open next summer.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, because that's obviously going to be a huge project to take care of.
More walls.
Yeah, so we wanted to make sure we did that. So we're glad we did it. We didn't actually get on the riverboat. Just didn't timing wise just didn't have time. But we did see it go around and stuff like that. So we got to kind of what we talked about last time. Sometimes it's as much saying goodbye to the area as it is to any individual attraction. So one thing I did want to talk about that I thought was nice was with the lightning lanes, because you can pick your return times and stuff like that. I think it's a little easier to manage like locations within a park. So like all the lightning lanes we did in the morning, whether it was Tiana's, Pirates, Haunted Mansion, that sort of thing, they were all kind of on the west side or maybe a little into Fantasyland. We did, I think, Small World and stuff like that. But then in the afternoon, we were coming back, we had our boarding group for a virtual queue for Tron, and then we had lightning lanes for the Tomorrowland Speedway, Space Mountain, and Buzz Lightyear. So they're kind of like able to have them all kind of in one area and kind of avoid backtracking. So that was one thing I found was a lot easier to do with Lightning Lane Multipass versus Genie Plus.
Are we going to have a spot in your story where it's just going to talk about Multipass as a whole, or do you want to do it here?
We could do it here. Do you want me to talk about it, or do you have?
Well, here's my question, because I want to frame it this way, and if you can respond in that frame, I guess you don't have to, but it'd be nice. But like you and I both treated Genie Plus identically, right? Mm-hmm. Maximize it, get our money's worth, do whatever we can, and generally, as an antithesis to what you just mentioned, that you were able to kind of set up where you were in the park, so to speak. In Genie Plus, it just led you around by the nose by whatever you could get, right? Yep. So crisscross, back and forth. Not only that, your days, we talked about this numerous times in the last couple of years about Genie Plus, it forced you to constantly be thinking, it forced you to constantly be checking, it forced you to be like, I got to get the next one, I got to get the next one, I got to get the next one. Like just that one more and one more and one more mentality. Whereas here, you've got 3 that you're managing. Did you find that the pressure of not having that more comforting when using this type of product?
I think so. I definitely did a lot less checking my phone with this. I really wasn't
good.
monitoring things. I mean, a little bit for some of the tier ones because I was trying to keep in track, like what can we get, that sort of thing. But I really wasn't looking at, okay, our next one, because there's no 120-minute rule that you're worrying about catching up to and stuff like that. It's just as soon as I scanned in, I already knew I still had 2 more out there. And I just kind of looked at what was available and I picked something that was either something we really wanted or something that was coming up soon. And that was that. I didn't do a lot of modifying. I didn't do a lot of things. It was really, I used it a lot. Obviously, I'm on my phone because every time you use it, you scan in and then you got to go into the app and pick the other one. But it was like less than a minute each time, and that was kind of it. I wasn't doing a lot of monitoring. So
there's no pressure.
So for me, at least this trip, obviously it's just anecdotally because it's just one trip. But for me, I found it much less stressful than Genie Plus, just the way my mind.
I mean, the way you've talked about it and the way I've read other people use it, it's basically the same in my point of view, or at least from what I can imagine it would be like if I were to use it. Do you think that? Well, let me first ask this: is MultiPass better than Genie Plus?
So for me, it is. It has, I'd say, the negative of the tiers and stuff like that. So, we talked about this before, kind of like who it's good for and who it's bad for. There's definitely like if all you're worried about are those top tier rides and you kind of want to have them all lined up and that sort of thing, it's not as good. But for let's forget about like there's always pros and cons in any system. But for Phil, is MultiPass better than Genie Plus overall? Yeah. I think so, yes. I think by having the pre-booking and not having to like worry about what am I going to get and at what time on the day of, having those 3 set, and then when you use one, you just book the next one. You already have 2. The way my mind works, it was significantly better.
Fair enough. Okay, so you've done all the Tomorrowland east side of the parks. What's going on next there?
Yeah, so the one kind of hiccup we had with that whole plan was Space Mountain went down for a bit. Uh-oh. So of course we were notified this has been changed to an anytime multi attraction pass or whatever. So the one thing we did was once that happens though, that frees up one of your slots for 3. That doesn't count as one of your 3. So we booked something else. So we technically had 4 things at that time. Ultimately, what we decided to do, and this is the one time we did do some crisscrossing, was the one lightning lane that was hard to get for us after, even by the morning, if we had picked it as our second one, it wasn't until the evening, was Jungle Cruise. So we said, okay, well, we can use this anytime pass because Space Mountain's down on Jungle Cruise, which isn't open during the deluxe extra hours, but Space Mountain is. Okay. So we're like, okay, let's go over and we'll use our multi-pass there, and then we'll hit up Space Mountain during the extra hours. So that was one time where we had a little bit of crisscrossing.
Gotcha.
And then yeah. So after that, we came back to Tomorrowland because our plan was to try to ride the Speedway, and we're just going to do it on standby. After we've already done it using Lightning Lane once. This is my son's favorite ride. We wanted to try to ride it while the fireworks were going on. Well, happily ever, because we didn't want to deal with the crowds. We didn't want to deal with Main Street. We said, well, this is something different. Let's try to see if we can see the fireworks while we're riding around on the Speedway. And I kept watching like wait times and this because I didn't want to get in line too early because then we're off the ride before they starts, but I didn't want to get in too late because then we'll miss it and that sort of thing. So we ultimately probably got into line about 3 to 5 minutes later than we should have. The fireworks are starting while we were still online, but it's like, an 18-minute show or whatever like this.
You're good.
Yeah. So it was still going on while we were riding and it was a lot of fun. My daughter drove and I'm trying to take pictures and video of this and she's like overcorrecting constantly. So the video is a little shaky. But we had a lot of fun and my son really got a kick out of that. That was definitely one of the goals we had heading into the day was to achieve doing that. And it worked out pretty well. And after that, we just started kind of knocking out a lot of the smaller rides that we were getting lightning lanes for just because they were available. And, sometimes it saved us 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes it wasn't needed at all. But that's how we spent a lot of the afternoon kind of after the fireworks. Like I said, we had access to deluxe evening hours and we did at 6 p.m. get another boarding group for Tron. So we knew we were going to have that in the evening. And I will say, just to go over what we got done in the evening, the last thing we did, or we got into see the Country Bears at 11:02, and quickly, I thought the new show is great.
Okay.
They really did a good job fixing up the bears. The movements and everything are really good. It's obviously all Disney kind of songs, but they do their own kind of country twist on them, and a lot of them have a lot of humor in it. When Big Al sings "Remember Me," I almost I probably did lose it. My son got a kick out of. He was laughing just at how hard I was laughing at Big Al singing "Remember
The
Me."
last
So,
handful of times I went to that show, everybody seems to have a good time, but there's no one's really laughing or clapping or cheering. Everybody's just kind of taking in the show. Whereas again, late at night, but were there people singing, laughing out loud? Was it seemed more of a crowd engagement?
It wasn't, obviously it's already 11 o'clock at night. Most of the people, if you didn't have deluxe hours, were already gone. So it wasn't full, but there was a good amount of people and everybody was laughing and clapping. And actually they would finish the song and people would clap. And my daughter was like, "Why is everyone clapping? Don't they know they're robots?" It's
awesome.
So that was a good time. So we did Country Bears, PhilharMagic. We did Seven Dwarfs Mine Train with a 23-minute wait.
Very good.
We did Space Mountain Standby. We used our Tron boarding
Virtual
group
queue.
virtual queue. So we did all 5 of those things during the extra hours. So including, Space Mountain, Tron, and Mine Train are 3 kind of big hitters, along with PhilharMagic and Country Bears. We all got done.
Did you plan it out this way, or were you let's pound some rides here, go, 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 go?
It was sort of I knew I wanted to do Country Bears. That was kind of one of my priorities. And then I thought we were just going to come back and do Mine Train and go back over to, because we had Tron and we were going to do Space Mountain. But then the kids were like, "No, let's do PhilharMagic. We want to do it." I was like, "All right, so let's do that." So they were kind of, I thought by now it's, after 11 o'clock, they'd be a little tired, but they were still kind of go, go, go. I was like, "All right, let's do it.
Let's go. Rock and roll." Yeah.
So overall, compared to Epcot, where I felt other than Guardians, we didn't really get much done. It felt like you could get a lot done during the deluxe hours. Ultimately, we walked out of the park at 1:05 a.m.
That's a long day.
So
your
that's
kids
a
are
long
still
day.
kicking. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so they were pretty good. And one thing I got a kick out of is I have a thing, kind of keeps track of how many steps you have and stuff like that, but it resets at midnight.
Oh.
So by the time we were got to our room, I checked, we already had just shy of 5,000 steps already for the next
from
day.
midnight.
From
Okay.
midnight on. So
You were really hustling.
yeah. So and just to go over the stats, because obviously I didn't say every other ride that we did, but we really hit all the tier 1s and kind of all the next level of tier 2s and stuff like that. Ultimately, we did 23 attractions during the day. 11 of them we did by Lightning Lane. 9 of them we did by Standby. And this doesn't include the rafts or Tom Sawyer Island. So we did 23 attractions in addition to that hour on Tom Sawyer Island. And
in the hour and a half that you were gone from the park.
Yeah, and we were gone for an hour and a half, and we only arrived at the park at 9:30. And then we did 3 attractions via virtual queue, Tiana's once and Tron twice. And I did time, so taking out the time we're gone, we were in the park for 13 and a half hours.
That's not bad. I mean, granted, you had the extra hours there, but you kind of half balanced by getting there a little bit later than park open. So that's you accomplished a lot.
So obviously, some of the Lightning Lanes we had were for some rides that, I think we got them for the teacups. You really didn't need that, but they were available and we were right there, whatever. So I'm not going to say every one of them saved us tons of time. Yep. We still got 11 uses out of Lightning Lane. So I think that's
pretty good.
I think that's pretty good.
So let me ask this, because I wanted to save this to the end of your Magic Kingdom day. Walking through Frontierland and Tom Sawyer's Island after the D23 announcement, what was this, 5 days before this or so?
Yeah. Not even 3 days.
3 days. Did this affect you in any way doing that? Or is it just kind of okay, and you kind of go on?
It definitely affected priority wise. Like I said, we definitely were going to do Tom Sawyer Island probably anyway, but it was we're definitely getting this on, and we'll see if we could do the
But what about the feels? I understand, you're doing this mechanically. You're I want to see it the next time. You want to get through it, because our DVC engagement we're going to talk about next week is about do you book trips because of things going away? And you took your time to say, I guess, goodbye and all this other mixture. But like, are you walking through it, like looking around, like taking it in, type of thing?
Yeah, I definitely was at times, just like not so like taking it in and saying like, oh, I gotta like sear this into my brain. It was more like, what is this going to look like in the future?
Yeah, that's how I would look at it.
And
yeah.
it was, I remember I made a point of taking a photo at the very top of the drop of Tiana's.
Mhm.
And just because like when you're up there, it kind of hit me on the first time. So then the second time I was like, well, let me take a photo of it. You're seeing the river, you're seeing all these things. And it's like, what is this view going to look like in 5 years or 4 years or whatever? So I think that's kind of where it hit me more than like, oh, I got to save these core memories. It was more of like, I'm so used to this view. What is it going to like? It's going to be so different. What is that going to be?
The curiosity of it.
Yeah, kind of more the curiosity and kind of like just trying to put it all together and see how it's going to look. Because we talked about it like before, like there's a big mountain as part of like Cars Land. Like where exactly is that going to be? And like, how is that going to fit in? So
is that going to block like, is that going to give you sightline problems from like Tiana's to like Haunted Mansion? Where maybe that's a good thing that you can't see the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see because not only can you see the Haunted Mansion, you can see the castle, you can see Tron, you can see Space Mountain and stuff like that. So I don't know, maybe it will block it a little bit. I don't know. But it's definitely going to change things.
The only thing I would probably want to take a picture of or like just kind of stand there for a couple moments is as you're coming from the hub down Liberty Square, kind of like where like the Christmas shop is, because that's that mountain supposedly is probably going to go right there. That's going to grab your kind of, I don't know if it's going to be like Matterhorn kind of grab your attention, but like
it's supposed to be like
right
the
there.
weenie to draw you in. Yeah, you'll definitely see it from there. So
I would love to be able to just sit there and be like, what is this going to look like in 4 or 5 years? So I don't know. That's pretty cool. Any other like full like any differences on your day at Magic Kingdom? Is this just like another day at Magic Kingdom that was awesome and you got to see some new things? You got to accomplish try out the multipass. You got to see Happily Ever After on the Speedway, that sort of thing. But was this just another typical successful Magic Kingdom day to you at that point?
I think it was mostly that. Obviously, it's always going to be different when it was just the 3 of us versus the 5 of us.
That was my next question.
So it was definitely more of all of us together. A little bit more. We'll get into Hollywood Studios. We did split up a little bit, but like, I think more when there was the 5 of us, we would do more splitting up. There'd be more of, well, what do you want to do? What are the priorities? I think this was more, I don't know if efficient's the right word, but it was kind of like everyone was a little bit more on the same page and kind of were doing what we're going to do. And it was just to enjoy the day.
Okay. Yes, it sounds successful. Was it any more difficult being the single parent with 2 kids running around, or you guys became like a team and you guys conquered the?
I think it was more that it was.
That's cool.
I think I mentioned it before. The only thing was, and this happens anyway, but it was just arguing because a lot of the rides are, only 2 seats or whatever. So it's like, oh, well, who sits next to me? Like, who's going to drive the car on the Speedway versus sitting next to who's going to sit next to who on Big Thunder Mountain? Who's going to sit next to who on Tron and things like that. And it wasn't, big arguments or anything like that. But I think before it was, when it's all of us, it's like we could kind of trade off. Like, oh, I'll go with my big sister. I'll go with my mom this time. And then I'll go with dad next time. This time it was like, well, the only option is dad. So it's like you kind of had to.
You
either have to do that or be by yourself or whatever. So. And sometimes they did go by themselves because now they are old enough that they didn't need an adult sitting next to them. So like, I think both times we did Tron, they were just next to each other and that sort of thing. So,
all right. So next day for the sake of time, it's my fault for slowing us down. Day 6, Hollywood Studios, your last day at the parks. So,
so this is the other one where you had the lightning lanes. The plan was kind of the same thing, was get there when we can. We had, again, stacking of 3 lightning lanes, like 9:30, 10:30, and 11:30. And the only other priority I had was I know for the summer, at least Goofy and Max were out meeting, and I really wanted to meet them. I got a new Goofy movie shirt and stuff like that. So I was like, that's kind of one priority for me that I wanted to accomplish. Now, with it being such a late night last night, we got a late start to the day. The kids slept until about 9:30, and this is kind of one moment where
that is 8 hours of sleep. I mean, it's not like sleeping late, but like
where this was definitely one of the moments where I was like, do I push them? Do I wake them up? Where I think if my wife was there, somebody else I could have counseled with type thing, where here it was like kind of up to me. Ultimately, we didn't make it to the park until 10:30, so we had already missed our first lightning lane, which was for Tower of Terror at 9:30. I will say at Magic Kingdom, there were a lot of we just kept stacking up the lightning lanes and then hitting them when we hit them. There were some I know we were past the window, but it didn't seem to matter. So in my head, I was like, oh, well, maybe they don't really care if you're showing up late or anything like that. I'll find out later if they do care.
Okay.
But yeah, so so the first ride was 10. That we didn't get there until 10:30, so we weren't able to do that first ride. So what we did was
Did it end at 10:30? Was it 9:30 to 10:30?
Yeah, so it was 9:30 to 10:30 was the opening window, and we didn't get to the park until 10:30 at that point, and we knew that our next lightning lane was already coming up soon. So what we did, the first thing we did was we went to meet Max and Goofy. We did that at 10:35. Then we got the kids wanted some blue milk, just something to drink because we were going to go through Galaxy's Edge to get to Toy Story Land. We scanned in, so they got some blue milk and just kind of took in Galaxy's Edge a little bit, which I think, we always try to do that a little trip. I know everybody, it's not their favorite land. It's not what they would have done with Star Wars, but it's still, to me,
it's still Star Wars.
It's still amazing what they've built there, all the level of detail and stuff like that. So the first lightning lane we scanned in for was Toy Story Mania. That was at 11 o'clock. And then we booked for Rock and Roller Coaster. This is the one time my son did not want to do that. So I only booked it for my younger daughter and myself. After that, we went into Slinky Dog. And then we actually left for the park for our midday break. So we'd only gotten there at 10:30 and we left at just before noon. So we'd only been there for like an hour and a half.
Dipped your toes in.
Yeah. So just kind of getting used to it, kind of resetting things, getting a start to the day, getting some of the lightning lanes going and that sort of thing. Had our midday break, actually went swimming for a little bit, ultimately left because that was going to be really our last chance. Ultimately left the resort at about 2:38.
Did you end up going back to Animal Kingdom Lodge, or did you go over to Caribbean Beach?
So this time we went back to Animal Kingdom Lodge.
Okay.
We'll go to Caribbean Beach later this evening.
Oh, okay. I'm ahead of you here. Yeah. Sorry.
So this time we were like, okay, we'll go back. At this point, we have our Tower Terror one that we never used, and we have our Rock and Roller Coaster one. So we'll go do those two kind of in that area of the park. Kind of take care of that. Now, at this point, we scanned into Tower Terror at 3:15. Obviously, we are a little bit late for our 9:30 starting window. And they looked at me, they're like, this says it turned blue, the Mickey head. So it says you guys are 218 minutes late. What happened, basically? And I was like, we took a midday break. It took longer than we thought. I'm sorry we're late. And they were like, okay, well, tell me a joke. And so we had to tell them a joke. And then she's like, all right. So I said, why did Aladdin go to the Haunted Mansion? He was looking for Abu. And she's like, okay, that one's pretty good. And then my son goes, I have one too, he's like, yeah, I was going to get a job working in Egypt, but turns out it was a pyramid scheme. So she's like, all right, those are pretty good. You guys can go in. So
you got to earn it though. You got to
earn it. So we went in. My son actually originally wasn't going to ride this either, but he agreed to do it. I think now he's done it twice. He's done. He doesn't need to do
he's
it
over.
again.
Okay.
But my younger daughter, this is the first time she rode it since the first time. And she enjoyed it. So she had a good time. We had a nice time on that. It was a good run. Then we went to do Rock and Roller Coaster while my son, I gave him some money and he went to like Starbucks and got like himself a drink and just kind of chilled in the air conditioning and kind of checked out a couple of the stores and stuff like that. But he had his phone with him on the Wi-Fi. So he was, if anything came up, but everything was fine. We went on.
Was that one of his first times he was by himself at a Disney park?
So we did it similar last trip where he didn't want to ride Space Mountain. So he rode,
I remember.
He rode the Speedway by himself and then waited in the gift shop. Although at that time he didn't have a phone. We still don't have a real phone for him, but we gave him an old phone with Wi-Fi for this time.
Sure.
So at least this way we could communicate if need be. The other time he didn't even have one. So he was just like waiting, and like the Space Mountain line took way longer than we thought. So he's like, where were you guys? But this time everything worked out fine. And he was really good. He just got the one drink. He didn't like blow my money and stuff like that. So it was all nice. Good. We got a blue head again for Rock and Roller Coaster. We were a little late, but it wasn't that late. So they just waved us through. The only issue we had was we were like waiting for it and there's a delay in the car a couple ahead of us going because some guy had his phone out to film, and it kept coming over on the speakers like, you cannot have phones out, you cannot have anything loose articles, blah blah blah, and he just like wouldn't put his away. Eventually somebody had to come out and like, dude, you can't have that out. Like,
Yeah.
and so eventually he did that, so that delayed it a little bit, but otherwise it was a smooth trip. We had a good time. We took some photo passes, just me and my daughter, by the the sign out front and stuff like that, so that was all good. Picked up our son, and then we went into the one thing we hadn't done, the kids had never done, and I thought they would appreciate, was the Indiana Jones stunt spectacular.
Okay.
So we went over to do that, and I think they got a kick out of it. I think it's one of those, they're like, I don't know if we need to do this again or like every trip.
It's long.
It is a little long, yeah. So, but I think they thought it was kind of cool, and they're like, I didn't know like there was anything like this, and it's still a really neat show, and it's one of the only like kind of original parts of the studios around. So we did that. We did go to make sure we saw Muppets, because obviously the rumor of Muppets Courtyard going away. So we make sure that was another one. I don't think my son had seen it before, and he was laughing a lot at it. But he's like, I can't believe how corny like stuff is. Like I was like, geez, some of the stuff he watches on YouTube though, I don't know, but like this is like highbrow humor compared to that. But like,
yeah, sure.
But
kids these days,
yeah, I know they don't they don't get it. But we wound up doing Muppets. We did Star Tours. We did Smuggler's Run. We did Mickey and Minnie. So we kind of got pretty much all the big hitters out of the way.
Yeah.
And we wound up leaving the park at about 8:15. We took the Skyliner over to Caribbean Beach. And I have to say, this whole time we're there, the kids are just talking about how much they love Caribbean Beach and why can't we stay at Caribbean Beach? Like, basically, it's the only place they want to stay now.
Well, I mean, it's going to save you some money.
Yeah. So I guess although I don't know, we're getting tight to fit in a room with all five of us, so we might have to do 2 rooms, and then it adds up. But we wound up, because they both wanted to really eat at Banana Cabana, which we did. We got wings and the bacon cheeseburgers that he thinks is like the best bacon cheeseburger in the world, and we got drinks and stuff like that. And I didn't realize you could actually see Luminous from the seats there at Banana Cabana. So at least where we were seeing, we could see some of the fireworks.
Were you you were at the seats that are kind of extended out into like the awning area there?
Yeah, it was kind of against the wall, like away, like kind of near the entranceway. I didn't realize you could, but yeah, we could see some of that. So that was kind of neat. And then we had back. I will say, timing wise, we had it a little bit bad, because by the time we were coming back was when a lot of the people were leaving the park. So it was a little bit crowded, getting off the Skyliner and stuff like that, and waiting for a bus. It wasn't too bad. But that was kind of the only maybe misstep we had that day, other than, being over 200 minutes late for one of our rides. Ultimately, though, we got back into the room at 10:30 to pack up, because we were checking out the other day. So just two things quick to go over. Ultimately, we did 7 rides using Lightning Lane. We did 2 shows, Muppets and Indy, and then 1 character meet. And we were in the park for 7 hours and 15 minutes. That
seems longer. I would say I would have pegged you at like 5 or 6 hours in the park.
I guess just in that evening, because we were there kind of like 5 or 6 hours straight there, and then we had the hour and a half in the morning. But yeah, we got, like I said, even though we weren't there that long, and we didn't get to the park until 10:30, we still got 7 uses out of Lightning Lane.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to mention, I think I posted this on Discord before, but sometimes I think we get so caught up in the minutia and the planning and all that stuff, we kind of lose some of the beauty of the parks and all that sort of stuff, for lack of a better word. But there were 2 moments this day that kind of hit me. One was when we were riding Star Tours. There was a family that had a girl in the family who was clearly, someone with special needs, had to have a lot of assistance and that sort of thing. And I guess her father or somebody was kind of explaining everything that was going on. And you could just tell that she had some sort of special needs that she had. But she was so into it, and then once the ride ended, she just goes, "That was awesome!" And like it was just kind of like made me smile. And then when we were in Galaxy's Edge, we saw a young girl come by, and in one hand she had Ray, and in one hand she had Vi, the 2 characters, like walk around characters, and they were just leading her around, and they were like planning missions and telling her, "You got to go over there." No kidding. And do that. Like, and you could see her parents behind her were just like beaming, and like she just had like a big smile on her face. So it's one of those kind of moments where sometimes
I mean, that's just like that's commercial making right there, right? Like you could go and watch these commercials. Yeah, you can never walk down Main Street by yourself and all this other kind of stuff. But there's moments on there that they're advertising. It happens, right?
Yeah.
And the most cynical of the people on Twitter or message boards or wherever might be like, Imagineering's not like it used to be. The parks aren't like it used to be. The service used to be so much higher. I'm like, the service is still pretty high. I'm not going to compare it with a number or whatever, but like sometimes you maybe don't pay attention because now you're a gnarly old person now and you remember it from when you were
I think sometimes we just get so into the details and planning and thinking about what isn't there that used to be there. You forget about the magic that's still there. So.
But that's why we always go back, right? And that's why everybody goes back, because I became a Disney adult because I saw the same magic, just my daughter seeing it. We were watching the family movie tonight, and where my daughter Aurora, meets Aurora, the princess at Akershus for the first time. Like normally granted she was like 4.5 at the time because this was in 22. But you could just see her, like her shoulders go up. She's like, I can't move. I'm so excited. And she's just like, it's so awesome to kind of see that. And like, you just spend extra time with her at the table and all that stuff like that. So like, yeah, I love catching those moments rather than putting your head in your phone and finding out when your next Genie Plus is. Like, just look around because those moments are all over the place.
Yeah. So that was it for our Disney stay. We got back at 10:30. Like I said, we finished packing up. That's definitely something that I missed my wife not being there.
Yes.
She's like, big packer. She's usually good about it too. And just having somebody else like, did we remember this? Did we remember that? And where do we put this? And which bag is that? Like where I kind of felt like I had to do all that. So
my wife is the organizer too. Like if it wasn't for me, we'd all be living out of a suitcase because that's how I travel. It's just like everything's in a suitcase. I have one bag for dirty clothes and that's it. But my wife takes everything out, puts it in drawers, make sure the kids have access to stuff. Yeah, I'd be a mess.
I kept trying to keep organized. I was like, okay, this is our Disney stuff. And then in this bag, I'll have the stuff for the cruise and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know how well I did, but whatever. I was definitely stressing about that more than
you're here right now, right?
Yeah, we made it back. Yeah. So just some stats. I was checkout day, but also checking in for our cruise. Obviously, check in online and stuff like that. But we left our resort at 9:16. With the rental car, we dropped it off at 10:40. We're at the port at 10:50. We were on the ship at 11:01.
Oh wow! And no issue with the rental car. Super easy to drop it off. They have a place right there. I mean, this isn't like the newest port in the world, so it's not the newest like rental car return place in the course. So it seems like a little like warehousey or whatever, but everybody was friendly and it worked out. And they have the shuttle right there, and they take you over, and everything from there was great. I'm going to cover the cruise briefly. A lot of people on Discord did have some questions about the cruise itself, but just also combining it with the Disney cruise. So that's where I'm going to focus on versus going day by day. As a reminder, we were on Royal Caribbean's Utopia of the Seas, which is their newest ship. It only debuted. I think their maiden cruise was like 4 or 5 weeks before we were on. It's the second largest ship in the world and has like, I think just over 6,000 guests on it. It's an interesting ship. It has so many of the like, kind of the best from all the other ships like put into it, which is great. It has like a new tiki bar called the Pesky Parrot that I loved. It has this southern restaurant called Mason Jar. It has just everything else that's like they learned from everywhere else. They added the destination elevators that they put on Icon. So it's just from a ship standpoint, it's like really is kind of the best of the best. It was really well done. We really enjoyed it. We had a room that overlooked the boardwalk area, which was kind of fun. Little noisy at night until about 11, but you could see like the aqua show like from our balcony and stuff like that. So that was really neat. And from a cost perspective, it was a lot cheaper than an ocean facing balcony. So that's kind of what we went for. Some highlights of the cruise. They have a zip line on the cruise that the last time we did this, my son was too light to do. You have to weigh 75 pounds. Yeah.
So my wife's been like working with him over the years to like put on weight.
Bulk up.
And so he was finally heavy enough to do it. So he was really excited he got to do it. My daughter weighed in at like 56 pounds. So they were like, you are not able to.
No go.
But they tried. They were like, all like the gear you have to use for like the zip lining. They had her hold it and like see, well, how much does that get you up to? And then they're like, well, maybe if you get like a bulky sweater and if you go to the buffet a few times, I'm like,
Yeah.
I appreciate the effort, but like if it's not safe, I don't know if I like want her like to like push the envelope or whatever. But whatever, she was okay with it. We did a fun class. They have a place that does sushi and hibachi and stuff like that, but they have a class where you sushi making class. That we did, that they taught you how to make different rolls and how things go together, and then you got to eat all the sushi at the end, so that was fun. And then one new thing they have on there is called the Royal Railway, which I guess they're going to have on other ships going forward, which is a restaurant, but it's, when you go there, it looks like you're at a like boarding a train at like an old-timey station. This one was themed to the Wild West. And they have these two classic looking train cars, and they have steam coming out from the bottom of them. And as you get there, they give you like moonshine in a jar to like try, you know, while you're waiting for it. And then you board. And the whole, like once you get going, the whole car shakes. You feel it like in your seat. And they use screens in the window, kind of, I guess, like the Hogwarts Express, but taken to like the next level. And it's like a 90-minute long experience through the wilderness, and like all the food is themed to it, and then they have like a show.
That's very cool.
They have entertainers come on, like there's bandits that are trying to steal something, and the conductor is secretly the marshal who's trying to capture the bandits, and they all interact.
Spoilers.
And they have like people come out, and they have like telegrams and stuff like that they that are like for some of they have some of the guest names, like, oh, your mother wanted me to remind you to pick up your like wart cream or whatever, like all things kind of like embarrass people. But it was one of those things where afterwards it kind of felt like something Disney would do. Like it was just so immersive and so over the top, and we all loved it. We highly recommend it. Now I will say we were able to book it at introductory pricing, which I think was more than fair for what we got. Because it's so popular, not surprising, they've increased the price.
Of course.
Now it's a little, I think I still might pay this to do it once. I don't know if I'd do it multiple times at the new price, but we're really glad we got to do it. And if you're kind of on the fence about doing it, I would definitely do it. So the only other thing I really wanted to say about the ship, it's marketed as the ultimate weekend. It's just doing 3 and 4 day cruises, and they're definitely playing up like the party vibe for it.
Okay.
I think I was one of the few people who probably didn't have the drink package. Like we saw quite a few drunk people. For the most part, 99% of the time they were happy drunk people, but still. Yeah. And like they do a lot of parties. Many of them are adult only, and they're on at like some of them don't even start till midnight or 1 a.m. That type of a thing. So most of the time, if you don't want to participate in that, you don't want your kids to see it, like they won't. It's obviously all put apart. The only thing we had a little bit of an issue with was during the day, on one of the days, they were doing a gin and juice pool party that was sponsored by Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and stuff like that. And it was so loud, like my kids were like, I can't be out here. This music is too loud. And then even we were down in the Central Park area, which is supposed to be quiet, but you can see the big giant screen. And where they had the camera going, you were seeing, you know, people shaking what their mama gave them and stuff like that. Sure. It was kind of like, I don't know if I, you know, so that was like, there was only a couple moments like that where I was like, I don't know about the vibe of this. So overall, we love the ship as a whole. I think 3-day cruise, it was fun to do, but we didn't have any sea days or anything like that. I don't think I would do it again until they change the itinerary to be like a 7-day cruise and maybe not quite as party-ish. But if you're looking for a party thing, there was a group of, actually across the way from us, there was a whole bunch of guys there on a bachelor party. And
that's perfect. Yeah, for that, something like that.
Yeah, so like if you're doing something like that, it's kind of great. But I think for us, and there's plenty of things for the kids. I don't want to feel like they had a splash pad. They had like the water slides. They had tons of activities. They had a really great kids club. My son went to the teen club and he met a bunch of friends. So I don't want to feel like you can't take kids on it. I just don't think it's as family friendly or as family focused as, say, maybe Icon of the Sea is, or some of the Disney cruises. So
that makes sense.
Just something to keep in mind. Excuse me. Overall, though, I do think the structure of doing the parks first and then a cruise second makes the most sense, because even though it was a short cruise and kind of had that party vibe. There's still plenty of time to rest and relax, and they have a full adult solarium where you can just sit there and quiet and stuff like that. And I think it was kind of neat to mix up doing Disney and then a non-Disney thing. I could also see doing the reverse where maybe you do Universal and then do a short Disney cruise or something like that.
Okay.
But overall, I really like the idea of having some times at the parks and kind of, that are more active and doing things, and then having the cruise at the end. I really think it worked out well.
Would you ever flip it where you do cruise first and then the parks?
The only way I would do that would be if I was doing a longer longer time at Disney. Like if I was doing the 3-day cruise and then maybe 10 days at Disney, where I would have more downtime.
You would never want to go from like a relaxing cruise type of atmosphere to like the London Dash.
Go of like a 4 or 5 day Disney cruise. I think I don't know. I think I'd just be so exhausted by the end that the last few days at Disney wouldn't be that much fun.
Right? I mean, at that point, you're there for 2 whole weeks. You got
almost.
Everything else. That's a lot. That's definitely a lot. All right, so that was a pretty successful vacation. We're at the end of your trip report. This is only 2 episodes. This is fantastic. Granted, if we wanted to, we probably could have extended this out quite a bit. But normally we would do our DBC engagement. For those that are listening, if you haven't gotten your answers in, we have them all listed here. We are not going to do that today. Drew, the Disney dude, is going to be on the show next week. We're going to be recording on Sunday with him, and he's going to be kind of giving us his D23 takes after, how long is
little time to settle, right?
Yeah, get settled in, talking Muppets, talking Rivers of America. He had some pretty like hot takes coming right out of the barrel on that one. See if he still thinks the same way, or if he's kind of like seasoned a little bit. But before we move on, this was a unique experience for you going down there with just 2 of your children.
Yeah.
Is this something that you would like to do again? Because I keep teasing my daughter that I would take. Just me and her are going to go to Disney World, all just the 2 of us. She says, "When are we going to do this? When are we going to do this?" I'm like, and I always push it back because I don't know, because we have other things that we're doing. But like, I'm like, how about when you graduate 8th grade? She's just starting middle school now, and she's like another kid's scared about new and bigger experiences. I'm like, well, maybe now if you can make it through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I'll take you to Disney World type of thing. So with that being said, just you and children, not all of your children, did that change anything over the grand scheme of things as you're looking back now? Was it just kind of like a fun, unique experience that you're glad you did? Like, how are you referencing it now in your head?
I definitely think that just thinking about our vacations this summer, it's kind of a unique situation that we had, although we might have to do it next summer as well too, because I think my oldest daughter is going to want to work at the camp again. Sure. I think it was just really fun time. In some ways it was simpler with just the 3 of us. Like I said, it makes easier to do some of those upcharge things because you're only paying for 3 people. At times it was hard being outnumbered, and just when they would fight, nothing too bad, but still sometimes it'd be like,
next year they're 1 year older too.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Right?
So I would definitely do it again. I also really enjoyed when I went down with just my son for that down and back. And I know my wife really enjoyed when she went down with our oldest, just one-on-one. So in some ways, the one-on-one is even better than one-on-two. So I think, obviously you do what you have to do. And if this is what makes sense next year to do me and the 2 kids again, or my wife and the 2 kids, that's what we'll do. But I think if anything, it's kind of, this whole summer showed us it's okay to do things separately. We don't have to do everything all together. And I think we might try to fit in more like one-on-one type trips.
I think I'm with you on that, because if you're out there and you have no kids, or you have 1 or 2, when you have 3, the dynamic of the family always changes, right? So this is not me trying to teach you all how to be a family type of thing. It's just I've noticed with other families that I know that have 3, yours included, and we have a couple other friends that are families of 5. When you become outnumbered, it's just basically you try to rein in the chaos as much as possible, because now you just have more opinions, more things running around. And when you can slow it down to just having like 1 or 2 children with you, it like the dynamic completely changes. Yeah. So I'm really curious, because what we're going to do for our trip next year, all the kids are going to be a year older, that if we want to split up, we're going to allow people to split up. Or if you want to go back early, we're not going to try to be like, oh no, you can't go back early, you're going to miss this. Like, go ahead. We're gonna go kind of do a thing like that type of thing. So we're
Yeah.
kind of splitting it up, and I'm glad that you had this experience because it kind of, not that it opens up my eyes, but it maybe gives me a permission structure to feel that it's okay to like, every single minute has to be a chance for a new memory type of thing.
Yeah.
And if I don't do that, I'm not going to get the memories that are going to last me for a lifetime. So, no, I really enjoyed this trip report, and I appreciate you sharing it.
I would say the one, I don't know if it's negative or something, but one thing that did hit me, like when you're talking about the dynamic and memories with everyone, is I did kind of have to catch myself, was like, how often is too often to like message my wife, like, hey, we did this, hey, we did that, or even just like posting on social media, like, oh, we had an awesome time doing this. Like, is she going to be like, oh, I would have liked to do that or whatever? I mean, she's fine. She's chill. It's like, I'm not really worried about it, but it was like, when you have those like positive moments or whatever, and you want to kind of share them, every couple times I was like, maybe I'll like hold this one back. Like,
see, my wife and I, we're not big texters to each other constantly throughout the day. Like if I find something funny on the internet, maybe I'll do it, but it's few and far in between. So I'd be curious if I was down there with two of my kids and how we would handle it. I think I just kind of shoot her a picture every once in a while, and then she'd probably call up and say, hey, what are you guys doing right now, type of thing. But I don't think I'd be like every 5 seconds. Now
it wasn't that often or whatever, but it was like, I don't want to.
What's the line?
Yeah, I don't want to feel like I'm rubbing it in, like, oh, we got this awesome thing, and this, the drone show was amazing. We had these seats because they weren't able to see the drone show when they went and stuff like that, So it's like I don't want to. So that was the only thing, like, kind of like being apart, kind of jumped out at me as like maybe a negative aspect of it.
Well, I mean, like this is a poor show on our side as a family, but my wife's had a record of not enjoying all of our Disney vacations because there's always something going on. So like, my daughter just mentioned this to me today, and she's like, "Oh, is mommy ever like going to Disney World?" I was like, "Of course, mom loves going to Disney World." Well, let's think about what she was going through every single time we've been there. So started like she had an 8-month-old she had to take care of. Then she was pregnant with somebody, and then she had a 1.5-year-old to take care of. Then she had COVID, or just coming down with COVID, or then she had, actually in 22, she had a good trip because she had nothing to worry about. But then last year she was just getting over like bronchitis and had like, hurt ribs from coughing so violently for like 2 weeks. I mean, she was healthy at that point, but she was still in recovery. And like, we need another trip where mom can just like, it's just cool. We can go have a good time. It doesn't have like earth shattering, like world moving, like events happening with like new babies and stuff like that. So, it's, I don't think we could, I don't think I'm ready to do like me and one kid or two kids going down without her. But like, I think being able to breathe on our vacation where it's not like, if me and my daughter want to go, and everybody else kind of wants to get tired, we can kind of hopefully be able to do that without anybody getting their feelings hurt type of thing. So, all right. That being said, we are 1 hour, 20 minutes into this thing. I apologize. There's a couple. I was starting to take notes on when you were coughing, and I don't think I'm going to be able to edit them out because you coughed and spoke at the same time, and it might look a little weird.
Sorry about that.
Nah, it's fine.
I think I got better as it went on. At least
we're all family here, so it's all good. So don't criticize me for not editing it well, but it's going to be out there. Anyway, again, I want to point everybody to the DBC Pod landing page on magictravelonmain.com. If you need a place to remember where the links are, they're all there. Make sure you like and subscribe or leave a comment, whether it's on the podcast forum or on YouTube. Really appreciate that. And thank you for watching and listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Take care, everyone.